First, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming in for this session. So we are looking forward, and we already have Simon as well as Dr. Charak, showing off with their videos. And before we get started with the interview, I have a quick announcement to make. And first, I would like to say before we get into, I will quickly do the mantra. Sahanau bhunaktu सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति 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 हरि ओम. So I will quickly get started. Sorry about the disturbance. So I will quickly get started with talking about the Jyotish, and because a couple of folks who joined today, they do not know about who we are, what we do. So very quickly about ourselves, we are a non-profit organization, and we started in 2020, but our roots lies 30 years back, where we are more famous for our Jyotish conference, and where we happen to have many famous astrologers has been presenting. So we have an upcoming Jyotish conference as well, and which is the 27th one, and we'll be getting into that one as well. So then very quickly about the Jyotish conference itself that's coming, we have many more astrologers. Among them, the Simon and the Dr. Charak is live today. And we have much more, as you can see, with Dr. Charak. We have Vinay, Aditya, Komilla, VP Goel. We have, Charlotte Benson coming in, Marc, Boney, and Gary Gomes. Dr. Andrew Dutta is also there, and the owner of Relaed, the Michiel Boender is also there. And we also have a new speaker this time, which is the Brandan Feeley is going to speak for the first time. Marc Boney is also speaking for the first time. And very recently we have two more speaker has confirmed, and also the new topics has been confirmed. It's the Shyam Kansal as well as the Anuradha Goel, who will be looking into the interactive session for us. And few of the topics which people are very interested in knowing, this has been getting advertised for quite some time, but we have additional topic which I will emphasize more upon. But these are the few topics which people were very interested in looking into. So some of the Gemini Karka points will be coming from the Vinay Aditya ji, as well as Marc Boney will also be getting into the details of the Gemini part from a completely different angle. We have some stuff from the VP Goel. Simon, and the Simon is around. We have the financial astrology, which is coming from Simon, as well as there is a very interesting topic called Find Your Lucky Times with Vedic Astrology. Do not forget to ask questions to him, how, what all will be covered, and who should be the audience for that one. Komilla Sutton is looking into analyzing the Rahu Ketu as well as Sadeshati from her side. Dr. Antardasha will be looking into the KP astrology from his side. And there is another interesting topic coming from the Vinay Aditya ji, is called, spiritual quotient in your chart. So I'm looking forward to this. With that, there are a few topics which was not been announced, and very recently the has came up from the speakers. So a few of the topic which students are really looking forward to is coming from the Dr. Charak. So given Dr. Charak is live today, do ask your questions on that one. So interpreter, what are the pitfalls of the interpretation of the yogas, Raj yogas, which is done by the weak graha under the special circumstances. A very interesting topic that the people are asking me questions about. You can ask it from Dr. Charak. Worshipful techniques is one of the techniques which people always want to hear from Dr. Charak. He has written multiple books on that particular topic. So that is there. In addition to that, we have a couple of topics confirmed from VP Goel. I do not know much about this particular topic. It's called Argala in prediction. So, that's one of the topics from the Shyam Kansalji is talking about Sarvabhadra Chakra in predicting the forex market. Seems very interesting. topic, and then there is two more topic coming from the Brandan. Feeley is about Iyer methods as well as Jyotish and Ayurveda. So these are the few of the things which can be confirmed. It is starting from November 6th and 7th. So it's an online weekend only, and it will be spread for the 6 days, which is 3 weekend of 6, 7, 13, 14, and 4th and 5th December. So during Thanksgiving or the weekend of the Thanksgiving, we are not continuing the session, but we will, followed by that, the session will be continued. With that, I will get more into a part of the interview and talk about Simon, who is here with us. Simon is not a figure, is not well known in the Western world. People know him a lot from 2 of his books, and pretty much all the Jyotishi have a collection of these books. So I do have my copy over here, and Simon is famous for his Jyotishi and like a Vedic astrology, as well as his knowledge in the Ayurveda, where he has taught along with Dr. Vasant Lad in a very renowned Ayurvedic institute. And in addition to that, there are many more to learn from Simon. So I see, 2 websites of the spirit types as well as the decoding the Vedic wisdom for people to go and look into the work of the Simon, as well as, highly recommend looking into his books and the course. I will come to Dr. Charak, and Dr. Charak is a name well known in the Western astrology. When I started with some of the courses of Dr. Charak, I get to know more about him than what I was knowing earlier, because it was not a figure who was not knowing in the West world. While in terms of Dr. Charak's background, he is a surgeon as well as a Vedic astrology, the astrologer from last 50 years, and have written many books. And a few of the things which are Dr. Charak are also known for his medical relief for India, and kind of a charitable organization which he runs and which provide a free surgical and medical care to the people, and much more than. So we have a website of Dr. Charak to look into, and he's also known a lot about his contribution which he did in the field of the medical astrology. So I would like to take a 1 minute of time and let the people know about the medical relief for India. At this point of time, we are looking for, there is a challenge going on in the fundraising, is whatever we generate will be a generous donor is going to match that donation. So if somebody is interested in doing that, or do help us spread the words about this, because it will be very helpful for us. If you give us a $10, it will become $20 for us. So really want people to contribute. Another thing I would like to mention is Simon has been very generously helping us out, generating for the medical relief for India through an initiative called 5-Minute Astrology, where people can come, request for their consultation, and there are volunteers, as well as Simon is available to be able to give the person in a 5-minute of video. So recommend looking into it. That's a very simple way of helping medical relief for India. It's generating, every day by day, it's going to the next phase. So with that, I will quickly talk about a lot of contribution which is done by Dr. Charak in terms of books. I could not put all of it, but some of the famous one I had kept it over here, either on the Varshfall or the medical astrology. A few of the very early on, the elements of the Vedic astrology and the yoga in astrology are very famous.
Dr. Charak, how many books total have you written? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here.
About 12, 13.
12, 13. Can you, which other books that we can't see here do you have?
You see, we've come up with the 3 volumes of Vedic Astrology Digest. And Meenakshi has shown one book on medical astrology, that is the subtleties.
Sorry about
But then
that.
I have the,
Can you hear me from here?
yes, we can now.
Sorry about that. I think one of my computer has crashed in the background. So basically, we were looking into the Vedic astrology, and we will have much more to see in that area over here. So with that, Simon, I would like to pass it on to you, and you can get started asking your question. And we are here to talk to Dr. Charak. And, I don't have to get into the Vedic Astrology Digest when, editor of the whole, articles and, the knowledge of the Vedic astrology, whole Parashtra system is here with us. So just passing on to Simon for your questions. And thank you, Dr. Charak, for being here, being live with us.
Thank you, Meenakshi ji. I know what it's like to have computer issues, so it's very frustrating. So thank you for doing this. Yes, so Dr. Charak was just saying, I had asked him when he dropped off what other books he has written. He was discussing the 3 volumes of the Vedic Astrology Digest. Can you just say a little something more about the remaining publications, Dr. Charak, and then I'll chime in.
There is a classic called Jatak Alankar, which I have translated from Sanskrit into English and then written a commentary on. And then, of course, this one book on Surya the sun god.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, of course, we have translated some of these into Hindi and in some other languages also, including Russian and Japanese.
Wow.
And even in one of the South Indian languages, Telugu.
Dr. Charak, I have to buy a whole new bookcase just for your books.
Yeah.
I have to go to IKEA and get a new bookcase just to hold all. Okay.
Right now, I'm trying to prepare another book by our Prashna master, Shri Jayan Sharma. His book will be coming sometime soon. I'm actually working on it. It has to be, edited and rewritten and so on. So I'm on the job there.
Wow.
So it'll be a good book on Prashna.
Wow. I can't wait. So I'm curious how many people have all of Dr. Charak's books, because he just named 3 that I don't have. I don't have the Surya Dev book. How can we get them, Dr. Charak? Does Amazon carry?
Surya is not on Amazon right now, and with me also it is out of print right now.
Oh man!
So
but you know what?
That
makes people
new edition now.
That makes people want it even more.
Yeah, and we're going to come out with a newer edition now.
Okay.
I'm on the job.
Okay, thank you. Arsha Jyotish has some copies. Excellent. Would you say, Meenakshi ji, would you save me one?
Yes, Simon, I will.
Okay.
So I will just add for the Surya book. Surya book has a lot of knowledge of the spirituality as well, along with the Vedic astrology. So even the people who are interested in Vedanta, chakras and all that. So very recently I read through the whole book and very impressed with the work towards that. So thank you, Dr. Charak, for bringing all of this. In a summarized format, we have a lot of knowledge in that.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Well, okay. Well, let's get started. So long before YouTube channels, there was something called magazines. And what happened in magazines is that people qualified to write articles who had a scholarly background were invited to share their wisdom on a periodic basis. In today's age, where anybody can make a YouTube video, including lunks like me and people like me, its knowledge has become more available. However, the origin of that knowledge is somewhat in question. And so what Dr. Charak and his group of probably the most respected Vedic astrologers in the world have done is they've compiled the Vedic Astrology Digest. I'm going to hold up to the camera here. And I've had the privilege of reviewing this over the last few days, and I'm truly blown away. And I don't say that to kiss up or anything. It's the quality of the articles is top notch, not for reasons, not the least of which is that they are based in shastra. They're based in the classic texts, and the authors have a working knowledge of the Sanskrit. They have a working understanding of the text and the context. And I would put it to you that with the proliferation of more and more YouTube videos and classes and internet stuff all over the place, that it's actually become more difficult to find grounded, well-founded knowledge on Jyotisha. And it kind of reminds me of, I saw a news story about a house in Florida where the owners took extra care to build it very solid, concrete. They made it hurricane proof. They spent more money. It took more time. But then when the hurricane came, they showed pictures, and the house was standing perfectly while everything around it was obliterated, like a bomb had gone off. And in my mind, this is like having your Jyotisha knowledge founded in Shastra, founded in the essence of Jyotisha, versus, oh, I watched a YouTube video here. Oh, I read, I saw something on the internet here. Oh, this website says this, and that website says that. If that's how your knowledge is accumulated, you're going to be one of those shacks that gets blown away in the hurricane. So that's my preamble and my thinking on how to start Jyotisha knowledge. Now, these two volumes of the Vedic Astrology Digest contain disparate articles. They're each unique articles on topics like everything from, one of my favorites was how to tell if a person can be a doctor in the chart. This is by Dr. Charak, and how it's slightly different from the combinations for being an engineer. And I'm going to ask Dr. Charak about this, and I'll shut up here in a second. But one of my other favorites is on Gulika, and something I didn't know, which is that there can be a Gulika Raja Yoga, where the dispositor of Gulika is well placed, and that creates a type of Raja Yoga that can potentially nullify the negative effects of Gulika, or at least mollify them. And so we have articles. I'm just going to read here a little bit. Potentially the chart of Jesus, on the Shaktis of the Nakshatras, the Nadi Amshas. We have a fascinating aspect of Gochara, the transits in the study of lunations. This is by Vinay Aditya. And there's so much astronomy. There is so much, I think, such a wealth of knowledge here that it could take a year to teach this at a school. So my first question to Dr. Charak actually is, have you ever thought of using these to teach at Vedic astrology schools as a kind of adjunct textbooks?
You see, these articles are actually from our magazine, and of course there are some articles which were new, which were not already in the magazine, and we have introduced those articles also. But it was a periodical. It was a publication, bi-monthly publication, and it had nothing to do with the course in the school. So in the school, in the astrology school, we have a very organized sort of teaching syllabus which we strictly follow. So some of these articles are useful. For example, articles which are related to medical astrology and profession and so on. They are related. They are important, and we do read them there. But these articles or these books do not form a course of study in the astrology school. So that was not the case. This was basically a periodical, bi-monthly, and I definitely ensure that anybody who reads one page of this magazine, he should get something out of it. So we ensured that. And I had the help of two of my very, excellent friends, Vinay, Aditya, and Rajiv Jhanji. And the three of us, brought it out. And of course, Rajiv Jhanji left us for USA, but his sport continued even when he was in USA. And it still continues in producing these, books. So this was certainly not a part of the syllabus being taught in the astrology school.
What is the astrology
Can't hear
school?
you. You're muted.
Yes. Can you speak to about that?
We were earlier. Three of us were earlier teaching in the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, which is a prominent astrology school in central Delhi. But then we had to quit, three of us, and then we joined the Indian Council of Astrological Sciences, the organization which was formed by late Dr. B. Raman. And there are numerous schools run by the Indian Council of Astrological Sciences all over the country. In Delhi itself, we have some 5 or 6 schools. So right now, Vinay Aditya has been associated with one of the central Delhi schools run by ICAS, and I am associated with one of the East Delhi schools. So we are teaching there. It's an all India organization.
So these are live classes. There's nothing recorded or streamed.
Well, since this pandemic, we have been teaching online only. So for the last year and a half, or close to 2 years, we have been conducting the online classes. Otherwise, it was classroom teaching.
Are they taught in Hindi or English?
Both. English also, Hindi also.
But one needs to know some Hindi to follow? Or I'm asking for Westerners who may be interested.
No, there are actually students who appear for the exam in English only. So for them, in fact, earlier we used to have separate classes for Hindi and English students. Now we are combining this because almost all the students are Indians and they know both the languages. So some people appear in Hindi, some people appear in English exams. We do have, I think, lately we had somebody who knew only English. So actually, we translate Hindi into English when we are teaching. So anybody who does not know Hindi can also join classes. But yes, some of the terminology that we use, for example, I prefer to use the term graha rather than planet, are the names of Rashis. I, predominantly use Mesh, Vrishab, Mithun, etc. So those things I think even otherwise help in understanding astrology. For example, if you use the term Mars, it just conveys the meaning of a particular planet. But when you use the term, for example, Mangal or Angaraka or Bhumisut for the same planet, then the actual meaning which is implied in a particular situation, that is understood. So I think most of us should, I think, understand some of the basic terms in Sanskrit. So that I think it's important.
Yes, 100% agreed. And just a final question about that. So you mentioned you're streaming those, so they're over the internet. Can someone who lives, say, in Nevada or Berlin sign up for those classes and not actually be there in person? Or no?
They can have online classes now, but the trouble is that the timing may not suit you there because we are conducting classic at a particular time in India. We are doing the weekend classes only. They are Saturdays and Sundays, but Sunday afternoons. So that may be a very inconvenient time for the people who are living in the USA.
If it's afternoons, it wouldn't be inconvenient. It would be just very early in the morning. And for Europe, it would be perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. Okay.
No.
Well,
the Indian Council of Astrology.
oh, ICAS. I'm sorry.
ICAS,
Yes.
yeah.
I apologize. Okay, good to know. I didn't know that. Dr. Charak, what's your favorite article in these?
Oh, they are all my favorites.
And it's no, you got to pick one, and it's okay if you pick one of your own. That's allowed.
No. You see, we are preparing these books with a lot of attachment and a lot of sentiment goes behind that. And it is not just me; it is Rajiv Jhanji and Vinay Aditya also, who are very intimately attached with this sentimentally. So there is no question of picking one or the other. They are all, carrying different articles, and all these different articles have their own value.
You're like a good parent.
We are trying to,
all the kids are equal.
We are trying to segregate certain things. Like, for example, in the first volume, my main article is on the 8th house. In the second volume, my main article is on the 7th house. In the third volume, I have dealt with a special area pertaining to the 5th house, as it pertains to medical illness. So, we are trying to pick up select areas for select volumes. So that is how we are doing it. But all these, I'm equally attached to all of them.
Okay. So no favorite children of yours. Okay. Well, I read the article.
Well, they're all my favorites.
They're all your favorites. Sure. That's what you tell them. So I read the article in the 8th house, and it is phenomenal. It covers both the Manasagari interpretations as well as the Brihat Parashara Hora, like when the 8th lord is in the Lagna, when the 8th lord is in the second, etc. It goes around. It's a very thorough analysis, and I love that you right in the beginning you mentioned the 8th house was seen as very, let's just use black and white terms, very bad back in the day because it has to do with deviations from moral conduct. It's the 12th house to the 9th. However, in modern times, because it rules also, it's the 2nd from the 7th, so it's the money of the other, and it's sudden gains and so forth. A lot of people who are supposed to be more, our leaders, our political people, have strong 8th houses because that's kind of how you rise up in this yuga, in this day and age. So the 8th house isn't necessarily as quote unquote bad these days.
You can't become a billionaire without a strong 8th house. So
say that again. You cut off.
That also 8th house.
Say that again. You cut off for a second. You can't become a what?
I said you can't become a billionaire without the 8th house. So 8th house means a lot of money also.
Yeah. And that's maybe why
whatever
the rockets
the
look
method
like
of getting
penises.
that money.
When you're a billionaire, you make a penis-shaped rocket because, yes. Can you actually expand on that a little bit? And because it's a fascinating article, and that itself is worth its weight in gold to really understand the 8th house from the modern context versus how it was seen, at the times of Parashara.
You see, 8th house is an adverse house. We all know that. It is an adverse house. It is a house which puts you to trials. It is a house which is adverse for health. There are so many medical problems, chronic medical problems, incurable diseases and things like that, which result from the 8th house. But as you said, it is 2nd from the 7th, so it is the wealth of the spouse. It is 11th from the 10th house. So your professional earnings also are from the 8th house. So especially if you have some good influence on the 8th house, then your professional earnings are, ethical, genuine, and, good in amount. Then 8th is, non-conformism. It is deviation from the norms. And unless you deviate from the norms, you cannot make progress in the modern world. So if you just continue following the norms only, then probably you will not make the progress that is required in the present world. And eighth house, eighth is a crevice. Crevice means something, something hidden in the ground, something there's a defect in the ground or something. So eighth house is also the underground wealth. So if you have to do, for example, mining, if you have to do extract oil or gas from the ground, then that is the eighth house. Eighth house is also hidden meanings of things. So therefore, if you want to do research, that is also eighth house. So eighth house has many positive aspects to it. And when you have, you see, grahas are actually the concentrations of power energy. So if you have too many grahas in the eighth house, they make the eighth house very prominent. And that is what I have, I think, stressed upon there also, that if there is an overcrowded eighth house, it can cause health problems also. It can cause, poverty in the beginning and then, rise from an ordinary situation and so on. But then it also means a good amount of earnings and also following professions which are not the normal professions in the, according to the shastras, but deviations, even many cine artists, they have a strong eighth house. So eighth house has its positive things also. And if you have too many planets in the eighth house, it is it means that you have too many planets or too much of energy in the 11th house from the 10th. So therefore, whatever work you do, you are supposed to get a lot of earnings from there. And the nature of earnings, of course, depends upon whether you have the benefics there or the malefics there. But certainly, a strong eighth house means that you get good professional earnings. And therefore, we should not take any house as a negative house. So we have to consider the additional meanings of these different houses.
That's fascinating because, hold on, let me mute. I was driving home yesterday and I was looking at the traffic and everyone coming home from their jobs. And people are stuck in this kind of rhythm of morning, you rush to work, have your coffee, rush to work, evening, you drive sluggishly back home, you turn on the TV, you watch, and you go to sleep after dinner. And if you don't break out of that cycle, it's very hard to rise above that kind of level of atmosphere, of clouds. It's hard to break free. And you're saying that you need some eighth house. You need something that's unconventional to break free of that routine. And that's a very fascinating look at the potentially beneficial aspect of the eighth. Another thing in a separate article that you write about is the malefics and how they are actually necessary for a person to become a doctor, for example. You talk about you need to have a poisoned moon. Can you talk about that a little bit? Or an afflicted moon to be able to poison people, in essence.
Actually, for that particular point, I should give credit to one of my distractors, Mr. K. Rao. He wrote an article in the Astrological magazine of Dr. B.V. Raman long ago, and the article was The Doctor's Drugged Moon. And the basis of that was a principle in the Manasagari, where it says that if you have Mars in the 8th house from the moon, the person becomes a killer. The meaning derived from there was that because 8th house means some sort of an affliction, some sort of an obstruction. So if you have something in the 8th house from a certain house or a certain graha, then that means that that particular house or graha suffers affliction because of the energy in the 8th house. So if you have a malefic in the 8th house from the moon, that can disturb the moon. And moon is a liquid planet, and most of the medicines that we have, they are liquid medicines. Poisons are also, when you afflict the moon, that is poison. So basically, if you have an afflicted moon, you are dealing with poison. And that is an important point in the horoscopes of doctors, because they should have the knowledge which can adversely affect a person, and then they should have the combinations in the horoscope which should be benevolent, so that you use that knowledge for the good of the people. So we are all, doctors, we are dealing with poisons every day, and therefore we have to have some sort of affliction in the chart, and that affliction must be more than matched by some benefic combination, so that we use that knowledge for the good of the people. You see, when you are, I'm a surgeon. When you are doing operation on somebody, you are basically inflicting a wound on the person, and that we do because we have to do some good to the person. So you have to be capable of inflicting the wound with the intention to heal. So that intention to heal comes when you have some good influence in your horoscope. So you must have the capability to harm, and then not use that knowledge to harm, but to do good to the others. So if you have only benefic influences, then you can't do any harm. Then you don't have the knowledge of harming others. So, and the modern scientific disciplines are controlled by the malefics, Rahu, Ketu. These are technical planets. So if you have to have modern scientific knowledge, then you have to have the role of the natural malefics, which provide you the technical information. You must have a good Jupiter, which should be, there to help you use your knowledge in a benevolent manner. So that was the concept there.
And Dr. Charak outlines the specific combinations he's talking about in the book, in the Vedic Astrology Digest. So definitely go out and get this. By the way, where can they get this, Dr. Charak?
This is there on Amazon.
Amazon. Awesome. So it's one click away.
In fact, this is not available in India. It's available in USA.
La 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 la. Okay, well, there's one instance where we get access to the Indian books before India. So Dr. Charak talks about the specific combos where Jupiter has to influence the Lagna moon or the 10th from the moon in order for there to be some benefic intent on the part of the person. Otherwise, and this illustrates the same point that we just talked about with the 8th house, which is that in previous times, the malefics were not considered auspicious when they influenced the 5th house or the 10th house. But these days they are, because to study to become a physician, you have to touch dead bodies. You have to work with blood and gore, as it were. And these, things for a Brahmin or for a pure caste where you couldn't come into contact with them. But nowadays, they are actually a prerequisite for becoming an allopathic physician or surgeon. So, I love that these are based in Shastra, but they're written for today, for our times, and to understand the Kala Desha Patra that we live in. So all those combos for becoming a physician, becoming an engineer are there, and also for specific ailments. You talk about ailments of the abdomen. There's so many articles. That's why I asked you, what is your favorite? Because I wanted to pick your brain about one of your favorite. What's one that's not by you, that you just come back to and you want to read over and over again, that you've read multiple times?
You mean my articles?
What is an article that is not written by you? It's not one of yours, that you've come back to and you said, wow, I need to read this again. Like, this is so interesting. I'm putting you on the spot.
I think the only article that I've read multiple times, the one that I've written, is in volume 3, which probably you don't have.
I don't have, no.
Right now, but it is there on Amazon. It's now available. And that is on the 5th house as the key to ill health, because in that particular article, I have proposed that the 5th house is very important in medical astrology to detect an illness, to time an illness, and to understand the nature of that illness. And another point that I've used in that particular article is the concept of the use of the 5th house Nakshatra Lord, which is the same as the Lagna Nakshatra Lord, because it's the trine of the Lagna. So the Nakshatra Lord of the 5th house as Nakshatra Lord of the Lagna is
in
quite
the equal
important.
house system. So same degree as the Lagna.
In the equal house system. In the equal house system, that's what I'm saying. And when you have, for example, let us say Kanya Lagna, for example, 28 degrees. So the Lord of the Nakshatra Lord of the Lagna would be Mars. And Mars is an adverse planet for Kanya Lagna. It's the 8th house Lord. So that particular segment of the Kanya Rashi becomes more adverse, and the Mars becomes a bigger malefic there, because it is directly related to the 8th house and to the Lagna. So that concept I have put forward here in this particular article, and I have used it, in quite a few charts and things like that. So this was also serialized in our magazines, and we have put that article as the main article in the 3rd volume, which is now available.
Well, I can't wait to see that. So the Lagna Nakshatra star will then be the same for the 5th and the 9th. Nakshatra Lord.
Yes.
Because they're trinal, and if it's the same degree, then it'll be the same for the 5th and the 9th house. Yeah.
And then I have explained in various manners why the 5th house is very important, because not only just that it's the trikona of the Lagna, but it also indicates your past good karmas, and when whatever it indicates past good karmas also indicates your past bad karmas. Then 5th house of the Kal Purush is ruled by the sun, which is the life giver. So 5th house becomes important. Jupiter is the Karaka for the 5th house. That also is Jeev. So that is also concerned with your, health and everything. According to Ayurveda, also this Samanvayu, which is concerned with digestion of food and things like that. That also is in the 5th house. 5th house also represents the Manipur chakra in yoga. So 5th house is important. Even the Nabhi, the umbilicus, the navel, that is there, according to Ayurveda, that is the inlet to prana or life. So that also falls in the 5th house. So 5th house I have, explained as one of the very important houses of the horoscope. And if it indicates something good, if it is afflicted, it should indicate bad things also. So that's an article which we have included in this 3rd volume.
Well, I can't wait to read that, because I have a very messy 5th house, as you know, and you just described all of my problems there. So, oh God, okay. I'm not sure if I want to read it now, but I will. I have to read it. This is good. I'm glad you didn't send me that issue, so I would be in a good mood for today.
Actually, that is, if you want, I think Rajiv is already there, and he will be listening to us. I think he'll arrange it for you.
No. I will get it. Thank you.
I don't know.
He was kind enough to send me these two, and I feel like I feel very VIP. So I very much appreciate it. But I will get the 3rd volume.
At that time, the third volume was not available. Today, it is available.
I see. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, what I meant earlier when I said that this could be taught in schools is because the aggregate of these, a good teacher can select an article and teach for 2 weeks on it, like going in depth into a bhava for example, in depth into a nakshatra. So you cover Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, and Mriga, and Ardra nakshatras, and you personally tell the stories of the devatas, of the deities, and it's so fascinating. It's so in depth. So that was my point, that these can be used as an adjunct into a teaching curriculum to really drive the knowledge home. I'm curious. I don't want to make this just about me. Does anyone here have a question that they would like to ask Dr. Charak? If so, either unmute yourself or write it in the chat, and I'll read it.
Yes, this is Umesh. I just typed in something about the combinations for the doctor. Does Moon Mars conjunct is a combo for a doctor, or is it only Mars in the 8th from the Moon?
No. That is not the point. And Mars in the 8th house means that you have some sort of a medical inclination towards it. You can use the adverse things on others, but then you have to have a lot of benevolence there. You must have a good 10th house. You must have a good 5th house. You must have a good 12th house, which is the house for patients and the hospitals and so on. You should have some strong Raj Yogas in your horoscope to give you a particular status. You must have a good 11th house to ensure that you are earning well, as most of the doctors do. And there should be some sort of a link between the 5th house and the 10th house, so that you are learning something which you are going to use in your karma, in your profession. So there are many combinations there. It is not just that you have an afflicted moon and you become something great, because the afflicted moon can make you a criminal. So you have to have several additional combinations. And I think if you read the article, that will explain many things in addition to an afflicted moon.
Absolutely. And one of the key points of the article was the connection with the 12th house. And you gave an example of a physician who became a doctor, but because they didn't have the connection to the 12th house, they quit and became an administrative person, because you have to deal with beds and sick people and so forth. So you may have the intellect and even the inclination, but if you don't have the ability to deal with sick people and so forth, then it's not going to be for you. The article is not very long, by the way. It's what, like 10 pages or so. It goes. You read it in 20 minutes, and but like Dr. Charak said, every page has little bombs, like little mic drops. Like, whoa, that is so cool! I didn't know that. So the combination between 5th, 10th, and 12th house is one of the prerequisites, as is having Jupiter aspecting the Lagna 10th moon or 10th from the moon, as is having malefics on the 5th axis or the 10th axis. So all of that is in the article, as is at a slightly afflicted moon as well. Thank you for the question, Umeshi. It's a great question. Who else would like to ask? Yes.
Simon Peter here from Brussels. Thank you for inviting me for this meeting. Thank you very much, Dr. Charak. Also, I have a long-standing, maybe strange question. It is the 8th position of a malefic from another graha. Normally we always learn, Shani in the 8th house, we get Ashtamashani, as we say. What is Dr. Charak's idea about, for instance, a Ketu in the 8th house from Mercury or something like that?
So a malefic in the 8th house from any other planet.
Yes. Is there something to say about that? Should we work with that? Or because some people say, no, it's only when it's from the moon.
Yes. For example, you see, it's a general principle that 8th is a bad house. So from any house, the 8th will cause some sort of an obstruction to that particular point from where you are considering it. So for example, you consider the 12th house, which is the 8th from the 5th. So if you want to find out some sort of an obstruction to your child's education or career, it will be from the 12th house, your 12th house, because that is 8th from the 5th. So that is a general principle which you can, extend to almost any extent. But again, I would suggest that you can use that information to some extent, but when you are actually going to make a prediction, you must have the person's horoscope also. For example, you have 2 children, you will not know which one will have is obstructed this thing because of the 12th, because of your malefic in the 12th house.
Yes.
So I think the individual chart always will take precedence, but general principles are there, and in general, anything that is in the 8th from somewhere will cause some obstruction to that particular area. So that is the general principle.
And could we say then if it is?
You see, for example, just a minute. For example, I think Vinay, it must be there. He has been doing Varshafal. Sorry, this Ashtakvarga. And in Ashtakvarga, if the 5th house is strong, the person's own profession probably suffers to some extent because the 8th house from the 10th is strong. So 5th house will be some sort of an obstruction to your 8th house. So it's a general rule. It's not always there, but then it was discovered that somebody who had 5th house very strong, his profession was also very good. So they found that if the 11th is strong, then that neutralizes it to some extent, because then you have earnings from the profession which are there. So therefore there is no obstruction to the 10th house. So that way, any strength of any particular 8th house will cause some obstruction to that particular area from where you are considering it. But then you must consider the additional factors also, whether there is some neutralization there or not. And then the beauty in Vedic astrology is that if you have an adverse yoga, you have a bhang for it, you have a cancellation for it. So if you find some sort of an obstruction somewhere, do look for a cancellation also, which might be there. And therefore, do not just take the literal this thing, because I think the first article in the first volume, Simon, you have got it. That article is only on being careful about what you do with the astrological dicta. You have to be careful about it. You must see the qualifications of that particular dictum. For example, in the first article in the first volume, I have written that you must not use the astrological dicta only literally. And I have taken up the concept of this Saturn in the 8th house. And Saturn in the 8th house, according to the classics, causes, gives you a long life. Saturn in the 8th house is supposed to protect your longevity. And then I have given an example of somebody who has got Saturn in the 8th house, but then it is also a part of a Balarishta yoga, which causes longevity of only 2 years. So Saturn in Vrishchik, retrograde, 8th house, aspected by Mars, gives you a longevity of 2 years. And this Saturn in the 8th house, when it is supposed to give you long life, why should it give you a longevity of 2 years? And then in this particular horoscope, the person lived very long because there was a cancellation of this particular Balarishta yoga. There was Jupiter exactly on the degree of the Lagna sitting there in Mesh Lagna. And the person survived. And then the person survived very well till the end of the Jupiter Dasha. And when the Saturn Dasha came, then this Balarishta got activated. And during a particular Dasha, Antardasha, the person developed a carcinoma, a cancer of the breast, and then she survived for about 2 years after that. So the Balarishta Yoga says survival for 2 years. Classic says Saturn in the 8th house gives you long life. Classic says Jupiter in the Lagna destroys all Arishta. But when the Jupiter's Dasha is over and Saturn Dasha comes up, then this Balarishta gets activated. And after detection of this illness, the person survives for 2 years, which is the longevity which the Balarishta Yoga grants you. So you have to, use all these different yogas very carefully. You must read the classic, you must remember the classic, you must follow these rules of the classics, but then apply them judiciously. So that is the point that we are making.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, if just one little step for the Karakatra of, let's say, Mercury, and we find zooming in a little bit more that Ketu stands in the 64th Navams from that Mercury. apart from all the rest in the chart, could we say something specific, that there is something bad by that 8th position, by 64th November, where Ketu is in, from that Mercury or whatever other planet?
See, just one malefic factor, just one malefic point is something like, you have kept some ammunition somewhere and it is there, lying dormant. Unless you add multiple afflictions, the explosion does not occur. So single affliction, I would not consider as very important. And just the 64th Navansha or just the 22nd Drekana would not be important. But when you are having an adverse dasha, a functional malefic dasha, and you have the afflicted dasha lord, you have the Rahu Ketu axis on it, you have the Gulika influence on it, and then you add 64th Navansha, you add this 22nd Drekana, you add the Mrityu Bhag and so on, then you can consider it as bad. One solitary adverse factor, I would not give a lot of importance to.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Charak. I see Raj has his hand up. Raj, I'm going to get to you next. I just want to put forward a question that was asked privately, and I hope, Dharmaji, you don't mind. But I think it's a great question. So I'd like Dr. Charak to look at it. Aside from doing the normal sadhana of studying, the study itself, is there any other kind of sadhana one can do to further their studies in Jyotisha, to become a better Jyotishi? From your experience, Dr. Charak.
See, any sadhana will help you. Any yogic discipline like pranayam will help you. And one of the important things that I have found very helpful is your diet. And probably it's the first time that I'm spelling it out. When I used to, you see, I have been a non-vegetarian person most of my life. I am not now. When I used to bring out this Vedic Astrology magazine, the journal that we were doing, I would give up all non-veg food for at least 10 days before I started working on it. Because if I did not do that, then the concentration that I needed for writing, because these articles, when you write, you have to be at your best concentration. When you write something, if you are not concentrating well, then you have to cut off things, rewrite, cut off, rewrite, and so on. If you are observing your diet, if you are observing your proper discipline, then you can write an article more easily. And I had appreciated that long ago. And even some of the yoga practices, and I used to do this Shankh Prakshalan, if you know what it is. It is a washing of the intestines, total washing with saline. When you take saline and saline comes out. So if you do that, your concentration improves. So diet and these disciplines, they help you in concentrating and doing a good job. And I think at least I have got that message that if you are observing these disciplines and some sort of, I think, pranayama or meditation to some extent, all that helps. And of course, then you have to do your study and so on. That goes on. Because if you are cool-headed, then you can do things better.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Thank you. I think we've all noted when we've had to fast for a little while that your mind just gets clear and yeah, you're better able to see things. Okay, Raj had his hand up. I
have a friend of mine who was trying to learn the Vedas, and he went to a teacher and took some classes. And you see, Vedas, the literal translation is all right, but then to actually properly study and get the effects, you have to be able to pronounce the mantras properly. And when he was, whenever he was not able to pronounce things properly, he was advised to go home, fast for a couple of days, do some pranayama, and then come back and then, do the Vedic mantras. So your own discipline, self-discipline, your diet have a lot of, lot to do with your, this is a spiritual discipline. or at least a semi-spiritual discipline. And you have to be spiritual to do it well.
Did you say you went, you felt you had to go non-veg for 10 years before you...
10 days.
Oh, 10 days. I heard years.
10 days.
Okay, 10 days. I was like, oh man,
That's not 10 days.
Okay, we're all screwed now.
10
Okay. And are you currently non-veg? Or
I'm vegetarian now, yeah.
You're vegetarian?
No non-veg, no.
Okay. Raj, you had your question up, your hand up, rather. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, sure.
Is there a question?
Yeah. So my question was, I have come across a native. This is regarding the Dasha and Antardasha. So currently the native is running a Rahu Dasha with Saturn, and is around 47 years. So his Rahu Dasha started around 2013, and he's got a very bad period after Rahu Dasha. I've seen him like he's lost his job, he's lost his family, he's diverse, he's lost his wealth. All of a sudden, he was doing very good, and that he was working in the IT industry.
Raj, can you generalize the question? We don't want to do specific chart readings here. Can you generalize
so basically, yeah. Can you please let me know, like, what is Rahu good for a native of Mesh Rashi, and what is the very bad period, Antardasha, Rahu, Saturn, Rahu, Mars? What is the bad period for any native in Rahu, and what's the good period for Rahu? It's 18 years.
See,
What
Rahu Dasha can be very good, Rahu Dasha can be very bad. Without seeing the horoscope, actual horoscope, it is difficult to point out. But in one of the subsequent Vedic Astrology Digest volumes, we are coming up with an article on the Dashas of the Wayward Rahu. That is what we serialized in our magazine. I have written that article, Dashas of the Wayward Rahu. I don't know if Rajiv Jhanji is there. He would tell us which volume will contain that. Dashas of Rahu can bring you Raj Yoga. Dashas of Rahu can be destructive also. So it varies with each horoscope. So it's not that a particular Dasha Antardasha will be a bad combination in all horoscopes. Many of the doctors will get their medical education during Rahu Dasha. So Rahu Dasha is not always bad. And of course, Rahu has his own, it's volume 4. Rajiv writes that Dasha periods of the Wayward Rahu would be in the volume 4, which we are already in the process of preparing. The way Rahu behaves will depend on so many additional factors in the horoscope. And Rahu can be very bad, Rahu can be very good. Certainly, Rahu has its own method. It is, wayward. It's a natural malefic. It can, force you into daredevilry. It can, make you take risks and so on. But it can produce Raj Yoga also. So
how do you define wayward, Dr.
Charak? You see, wayward, I mean that, you do things which may not be expected of you. You take risks which may not be expected of you. So that is what Rahu does.
I thought it was some astronomical thing, a wayward Rahu, like a void of course moon or something.
No.
Okay. Okay. Let's do one more question. And let's see, Anita Ji has a question. What will you teach during the conference, Dr. Charak?
I think Meenakshi has given me 3 slots. One of the things that I would be doing is, one of the subjects that I stress upon is that whenever you are interpreting a yoga, you must not use the literal language of the classic. You should keep it in mind, but then consider the additional qualifications of that yoga and additional factors that influence the particular horoscope. So one of the subjects will be pitfalls in the interpretation of yogas. So that is one subject. The other, I thought I would pick up some special Raj yogas which are found by debilitated grahas, because when a graha is debilitated, we expect that it will not give us at least a Raj yoga it will not give, because it will be weak. But then debilitated grahas in their dashas do give Raj yogas in certain circumstances, and Parashar has laid down certain conditions where these apparently weak grahas give you Raj yogas. That is the second. And third, I thought we should touch on some of the worshipful principles. We have already discussed with Simon and your people, you have already heard me on this. But I would come up with some more examples and apply some of the principles to stress on the fact that worshipful is quite an important additional tool to your analysis of a chart, and you must use worshipful to see things in more details.
Thank you, Dr. Charak. There is this is a quick question. What is your opinion about KP astrology?
KP astrology somehow I have not studied, so I just don't have any opinion on that. People who have done it, they will be probably more suited to answer that question. I have not done it.
Ajit, we will have Dr. Andrew Dutta, who is a KP master, during the conference, so you can discuss with him. You can ask him. Okay, well, Dr. Charak, thank you for doing this. I just want to give my sort of personal opinion, which is very biased, but even the layout of the book is very readable. So I do recommend everybody get this, volume 1, 2, and 3. Just go to Amazon and get them right now. If you're stuck on an island somewhere and you have, for a year or 3 years, these are the books that you'd want to take, because they're various topics in Jyotisha, right? It's not just the astronomy, it's not just calculation, it's not just the Raja Yogas, it's a little bit of everything. But it's a little bit of everything going deep within that topic. So I love the layout. It reminds me a little bit of my book, Gambler's Dharma. The layout is very similar. The charts, it's very readable. It's quality. You could tell the paper is acid-free, good quality paper. And I think these are treasures to have for a lifetime. So Dr. Charak, any last parting words?
Yeah, in this volume 3, we also have a series of articles on Ashtakvarga, and I think it goes to the credit of Vinay Aditya, who has used Ashtakvarga even in the divisional charts, because I think before that we were using it only on the natal chart, but then he started using them on the divisional charts, on the Navansha, on the Saptansha, on the Dashmansha, on the Dwadashansha, and so on, and he found very good results there. Then he also used it on the worshipful charts and also on the Prashna charts. So volume 3 will give a lot of information on the use of Ashtakvarga, which Vinay has written on. And he's, of course, a master of the subject. So that will also be another additional point. And then we have also covered another 3 or 4 nakshatras, the stories from the Puranas and so on. We feel that if you are, conversant with the Puranic stories, then you can probably understand the nature of the nakshatras, the grahas, probably more thoroughly. In the first volume, actually, we have covered all the 9 grahas. So then from the second one, we started on the nakshatras. So these Puranic stories, the stories in the scriptures, they are not just the stories to be read for children. They are actually meant for the scholars, and I think anybody would find them.
I can speak to that from a Jyotisha standpoint. You taught us the Dashmamsha deities, the deities related to to that subchart, and just a quick example from my own chart. When I ran the period of a planet in Varuna, who was ruled by Varuna deity, I could not stop going to islands and being by the ocean. It was just, it fed my soul, because I'm from the desert. I was born and raised in the desert in Phoenix, Arizona. And my heart just said, no, you have to go to the water. You have to. So all of those years of that Mahadasha, I was happiest when I was by the water. So even just that simple thing, is illustrative of the power that these Puranic myths have over our lives. And as Joseph Campbell said, myth is living. They live inside us. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I believe that class is available. I think it's free, or it's like $20-30. It's absolutely worth the hour or two that you take to describe the deities of the D10 and how to use them in everyday life. That's available on jyotish.com as well. We've also done it with Dr. Charak in our classes. Okay, Dr. Charakji, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you at Arsha Vidya, at least through Zoom. And I'm going to turn it over to Meenakshi-ji. Thank you so much for allowing me to ask questions and for being one of the first to read these. It's truly a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Dr. Charak. So we are looking forward
Thank you so much.
And so go ahead, Dr. Charak.
Thank you so much. I've said everything.
Got it.
If you have any questions or anybody else, I would be.
Yeah, I think there will be questions. Just wanted to, before we close the session, we wanted to ask Simon, like Simon, you have 2 topics coming up. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you will be covering in those, and what kind of people should be joining, and is this the basic level, intermediate level, and what is expected from the student to revise?
Sure. Well, I have a crazy 8th house, so I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin, which is an alternative source of income and that kind of thing. And I'll also be talking about lucky times, which is a kind of a modern. It doesn't use the normal principles of muhurta, but lucky times in terms of if you want to apply for a job, the moment you hit send, there are little windows. For example, I'll give you a quick example. An Iyer technique called the yogi of a yogi, right? We all know this. When the yogi is directly on the lagna, and specifically on the D9 lagna, at the moment you do something, you have a little bit of an extra 5%, 10% push, in my opinion, from what I've seen in my research. That gives you a little bit more luck, a little bit more of a chance of getting the success you want. If you're a golfer, right, and the yogi at the moment, or your yogi, happens to be right exactly on the D9 lagna or on the Rashi lagna, and you hit that putt, you're more likely to sink it. So that's little timing. There are also bigger timings. For example, using the part of fortune, the Punya Saham and Vidya Sahams. So I'll be talking about those, and as well as, so very 8th house kind of topics, right? Very to Dr. Charak's point today. So alternative ways of plugging into your good fortune.
Lovely. Thank you, Simon, for that. So there is a question coming in the chat from the Satyaji. I'm not sure we can answer that, look into this question or not, because it's saying, do you calculate Ashtakvarga of the divisional charts differently? So
no,
I think
we do it the same way. We do the same way as we do for the natal chart.
Got it. So I think we are if somebody have any further question, even on the Jyotish Mela, which is coming up, because the Jyotish Mela is starting next weekend on Saturday and Sunday, and the first session will be a blessing from the Swamiji, which is open for everybody to join. It will also be available on our YouTube channel, and there will be an inaugural lecture from the Dr. Charak as well at that time for everyone to join. So you can definitely come in for that, and if you have not enrolled so far. And we also wanted to just talk a little bit about that. We do have a financial assistance available. So anytime I will quickly write the email ID over here, just in case somebody have a question. arshjyotish@gmail.com. So we have financial assistance available as well if you people are having difficulty to be able to join it. And if some of your speaker whom we have studied with is also speaking over here, you will have additional coupons as well. So do reach out to us and we will be very happy to accommodate you. So with that, I think we will give people another 5 minutes now, because I have blocked their calendar till 1:30, but we are a little earlier. So we will wait if somebody have any further question. If not, we'll go more towards closing the session. So I'm getting more, there is a comment or rather question coming from Karina saying, Dr. Charak, what would you say for Sun in the 8th house in Capricorn? My 5th house, Rahu, Moon and Uranus in Libra. I do not intend a chart reading. Thank you.
Sun in the 8th house in Capricorn. You do actually discuss this in the book, Dr. Charak, in the 8th house meaning. So Sun in the 8th house would be the third lord in the 8th, and what the suggestions for that might be.
Well, that is only one factor, Sun in the 8th house. In Capricorn?
Yes.
I think I have already written that. It's better to go into it, because when you see the different, just, one factor, but Sun in the 8th house is generally not very good for marital harmony. I mean, whatever sign it is. So you see, if you go to the story of the Sun, then the wife of the sun god, she left him. So Sun in the 8th house, Sun in the 7th house, generally some sort of a separation for some time at least. So generally not very good. That is one factor. But then there are other things also, because Sun in the 8th in Capricorn would mean that is the third lord in the 8th house. So it can mean something adverse for the siblings. It can cause ear trouble and so on. So there are many meanings, but then all this depends upon the actual horoscope.
I suggest getting the Brihaparashara Hora Shastra and reading the effects of the third lord in the 8th. We did an entire course on those chapters, what that means, and breaking apart every sutra. And those are very, very informative.
Dr. Charak, this is Umesh. Since we have a few minutes, can we quickly tell us just highlights, like what are the conditions under which a debilitated planet gives a Raja Yoga? I know you'll go into this in more detail in the conference, but this is just.
I'm going to discuss that subject in 1.5 hours. I'll have a lot of examples also. But Parashar has given some principles about debilitated planets. I am only going to discuss a part of that. The information that Parashar has given, I'm not going to discuss that. I'm going to pick only a part of it. But in general, debilitated planets in the 3rd house, 6th house, 11th house, they are not bad. They are supposed to be good, particularly if the Lagna Lord is strong, or the Lagna Lord is aspecting the Lagna, or so on. So, and the debilitated planets in these houses and debilitated lords of these houses can also give you Raja Yoga, provided the Lagna is strong. But I am going to discuss another aspect which will be different from these. Parashar has given many Raja Yogas, which result from the weak planets. So I think it will be good to read that chapter on Rajogas in the Brihadsparashar Hora Shastra. That will be better.
Okay, thank you.
There was one question, Dr. Charak, as we talked about the Vedic Astrology Digest is available only in US, not in India. So somebody was asking this question, how will they get it in India?
India, actually, you see, our books, we are publishing ourselves. And I have not started printing these yet in India. Yeah. But we are thinking of it. We are discussing it, how to do that, because we have a lot of problems storing these books and so on. So that is the problem there. It is easier with Amazon because you put the book on Amazon, you order one copy, they send you one copy. But in India, you have to print them and store them and so on. So we have not yet found a good publisher for them, and ourselves we are a little hesitant to publish all these. But I think eventually we'll make it available in India also.
I had one question. Is there a good book or resource to look at the charts of organizations as compared to individuals, like companies or things like that?
Companies, you see the chart of the companies when you sign some papers. I think that is the time that you should take, and you should take also the horoscope of the chief of the company. So both, I think, you should discuss. You should take and then analyze, and then of course, if you have the charts of all the people, that is very great. But certainly the person who heads the company, his chart is important, and the time you sign the documents.
Okay, thank you.
There is a question in the chat, Simon. I am not sure about this, but I can still speak up. Does Moon and the Mars of a child must establish a relation with a fifth house or fifth lord or ninth house, ninth lord of a parents for a genetic link between parent and child?
I have been teaching earlier on the subject of astrology and genetics, and there is a definite link between the chart of the parent and the chart of the child. According to one of the stories in the Puranas, Lord Brahma gave the lordship of the seeds to the moon. So seed, not only for the crops and things, but seed as far as the human being is concerned. And the moon is the genetic link. Mars is certainly not the genetic link. Moon is certainly the genetic link. So there are certain principles where the moons of the parents, they should have some relation with the moon of the child. But then moon, the fifth house, the lagna, all these things are important. And then the charts to be considered are the Rashi chart of the individuals and the Saptansha and so on. So it's a complete subject, astrology and genetics. I have I was teaching this astrology and genetics to some people in our classes in Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, and one gentleman he came up with a with the idea of finding out the time of birth for his grandson, and he wrote a complete, almost sort of a thesis based on my teaching, and then he decided on a particular day and a particular time, and he gave the horoscope to me, and using those principles, he was correct as far as the day of the birth was concerned, and his lagna was actually the 7th from the actual lagna of the child, which I think was a great achievement, because lagna and 7th, they are so closely related, and the lagna that he came up with was actually the 7th house of the child. So if you are using these principles, you can actually foresee the horoscope of the child, and of course you can only do that if you understand that there is a link between the chart of the parent and the child. And the link is the moon, especially the moon, because moon is the seed.
And for the person who asked about KP earlier, there is a KP way of making that connection as well.
Sorry?
Someone asked about KP earlier, was just adding that there is a KP way of establishing the genetic connection as well.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
I think there is no further question. We'll go more towards closing the session, Dr. Charak. We are getting here. Yeah. So we will close with the mantra, the way we started. So, Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudakshate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Dr. Charak. Thank you for a lot of the treasure of the knowledge. And, we are looking forward to the session of the Jyotish conference. Any question, people, reach out to us on arshjyotish@gmail.com and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank you so much.
sharing part of your day. Namaskar.
Thank you.